that. Thank you so much. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to our open meeting. My name is Roseanne Bernice and I'm the president of the WPOA. We have a great presentation scheduled for you tonight. However, we do have some business that we need to address first. Our April annual meeting, in which residents in attendance vote to elect officers, was postponed till this evening due to COVID. We are currently in the process of interviewing candidates for director positions, and we'll have that election at our January meeting. Past President Maureen Trexler will present the officers for election.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, Roseanne asked me to handle this as past president and also someone who's been chairing our nominating committee for quite a number of years. Tonight we're looking to elect our officers for the April 2020 to April 21 year. We have our 4 officers, as you see up here at the dais area. They are all still eligible to run for election. They are all willing to stay on for the rest of this year, and there are no other candidates at this time. So I'd like to put in nomination the names of Roseanne Bernice for president, T.J. Michon for vice president, Arnold Fenimore for treasurer, and Joe Ra for secretary. I'd like to ask for a show of hands in favor of the slate of officers. I'd like to ask if you're voting that you be a Western resident, though, because I know we have this as an open meeting, so there might be others here tonight. But I'd like to ask a show of hands, all in favor of the current slate of officers. Oh, that's fine. That looks overwhelming, so I'm sure we're fine. And we thank you again for coming tonight. I'll turn it back to Roseanne, and as she said, we'll do directors in general. Thank you. And if anyone, thank you. And also, I just might add, we will have a nominating committee for directors, and anyone who's interested in working with the WPOA, working on some of these great projects that are happening in the village with us, please don't hesitate. We'll love to have new people come in. Thanks.
Thank you, Maureen, and thank you all. Thank you very much. Rather than having 2 nominating committees, usually we have 2 nominating committees, one committee to interview trustee and mayor candidates and one nominating committee to interview director candidates. We would like to form one nominating committee that will interview all the candidates. And for those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. And as Maureen said, we are looking for 9 members for our nominating committee. You would have to be a resident of the West. And if anybody's interested, please raise your hand. Is anybody interested in becoming a nominating committee member? Or see us on the way out? Yes. All right. You can always reach me. You can reach out to me. My email address is aribernice@optimum.net. If anyone should change their mind, we'd love to have you. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you so much. You know, at the end of the meeting, you can give our secretary, Joe, could you raise your hand? Joe Ra, your name and information. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you for volunteering. Thank you. So due to the fact that this meeting is an open meeting, our January minutes and treasurer's report will be reviewed and approved at our November general meeting. I would like to let you know that our annual West End tree lighting event is tentatively scheduled for Friday, December 4th. We're waiting to hear what the governor's, his orders would be. But at this time, we are going forward in setting that event up Friday, December 4th. We'd love for you to come down. It is from 6 o'clock to 7, and we hope that this event will take place, and we hope to see you there. Vice President's report.
I'd just like to thank everybody for making the nomination and election to another term. Just as Maureen and Roseanne mentioned, as we move forward, you can see there's a lot of hot topics going on in the village, and we do have a lot of positions, looking for directors, getting some new people on the board, and getting involved, to be part of the village government, and being part of the process that goes on with this. So if you are interested, please let us know, or if you know anybody, or your neighbors, especially with some new neighbors coming in, encourage them to join and be a part of it. So other than that, that's all I have tonight. Thanks again.
Thank you, TJ. Our Board of Education trustee, Bill Hullab, had a conflict this evening. The Board of Education report can be found at the sign-in desk. So if you haven't picked one up when you came in, be sure to pick one up on the way out. And we wanted to congratulate Bill for being elected school board president. I guess we'll have the reports from our village trustees. Trustee Fritos.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Good. Thank you. Congratulations, officers. Look forward to another couple of years of working with you.
Thank you.
I just had a couple of things I wanted to talk about. First thing is, Hyde Park underpass, as everybody sees, has been open. There's still obviously some work that has to get done there. The pedestrian walkway has been opened as well, so that should hopefully allow for more free-flowing pedestrian traffic there. There's still some work that has to get done with regards to the walls behind Greenridge. There's still some relocation work that PSE&G needs to do over there. And once that's done, the remaining wall will go up. So hopefully that'll get done soon. Hopefully we'll have an update for that at the next meeting. With regards to issues in the village, many of you are aware about the 1-4 taxing. And just to give an update on what's going on there, wells 7, 10, and 11, which is by Clinton Road, the installation of the new system has been completed. And it's currently, we'll submit the information and the water sampling to the Board of Health for their approval, and we're hopefully going to have it open in the next month or so. And then that leaves wells 13 and 14, which is by the Country Club, and that project kicked off this week. And we took delivery of the units this past weekend, and we anticipate it'll take about 2 to 3 weeks for the work to be completed there. With regards to the water tower, as everybody saw, the construction has been completed. It's currently being sandblasted on the inside, and it will be painted on the inside and then the outside, and then it'll be submitted to Nassau County for approval, and hopefully that'll be up and running in the next couple of months as well. That's all I have on my report.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Holbrook. I have a few items here. First of all, one of the things that happened, and I was going through over the last 2-3 board meetings this way to make sure that everyone was brought up to speed with different items. The village entered into an agreement with Northwell Health, Occupation, and Environment Medicine. This agreement is for the professional services for village employees and volunteer personnel of the Glen City Fire Department. This agreement also includes medical examinations to certify employees who are medically capable to safely perform their job tasks and to return to work. Basically, the contract is set for the next 2 years. The reason that we switched over to Northwell is rather than having a particular doctor who may have a specialty in one area, by working with Northwell, we now, if in the event someone gets injured on the job, besides physicals or anything else like that, Northwell will then basically refer that person to the specialist in the field, and we will be able to get better medical attention to our employees. So it's one of the things we feel is basically a win-win for the
village, and it's an excellent agreement that we came to with Northwell. In addition to that, you may or may not have seen, but the Board of Trustees also extended outdoor dining on throughout the village till the end of the year. Several of the establishments, probably over at Waterzooi or over at Rebel and other places, they've already set up really very nice outdoor areas. But one of the things that some of them may do is they may also bring heaters, they may also put up tents. So what we're doing is we're trying to do everything possible that we can, not only for the restaurants, but for the other businesses in town, to do everything that we can to help them as we go through this COVID situation. As a matter of fact, the other day I was over at King's early in the morning, and I had to pick up a couple things, and then all of a sudden I looked down the block, and I think they have the swing classes that were outside. I think there were probably about 25 or 30 people, and you can see they all have it fenced in. And there's a lot of other businesses that have looked to do things outside. So basically, whatever we can do to help the businesses, we're going to look to do that. In addition to that, we also are addressing the storm debris, which from the last storm that we had. And then also, you may have seen that we've allocated significant amounts of money in order to address the leave accumulation that we've had for years. What many people are unaware of is that over the years, what the village has done is that as they accumulate the leaves, we basically have a section, an area over by where the dump is, and it's about a 2-acre area. And according to the regulations of the environmental controls, that area has to be maintained. You can't, in the old days, remember, the old people would just sit in the backyard and just burn everything or whatever. Can't do those things anymore. So what ends up happening is that we actually are addressing this, and our objective is that within the next 3 years, we will then get rid of all the excess leaves and debris that has been building up there since, who knows, 20, 30 years. And again, all of this stuff has to be constantly turned over. There's a lot of regulations that have to be done. And this will save us a lot as far as with manpower and everything else. It's something that we basically have to control. In addition to that, Nassau Boulevard, in case anybody hasn't gone there, this is one of the things that the board worked with. This is also in coordination with part of the negotiations that we did with the Long Island Railroad from the fund that they have, is that we worked with our architects and engineers, and what we came to the ability to do was to maintain the character and the look of the railroad station. Everybody remembers there was brick there, but bottom line is that it was deteriorating. There was a lot of issues there. So what we did was that we basically tore up the entire parking lot. If you've driven by, you'll see there's a huge pile of bricks there. And what they're doing now is that now that they've actually resolved the base of it, what ends up happening is they are now putting back the bricks that were there before in the same herringbone pattern that was there before. And I see Mr. Pinola here. I remember that we had a conversation a couple years ago, the aspect of preserving the look of that station, because it truly is a gem. So one of the things that we did is that with the usage of what we've negotiated with the Long Island Railroad, we were able to do that. Now, one of the things you may have also seen in the last board meeting is that we had to allocate an additional $200,000 for this project. The reason for it is whenever you're dealing with historical areas or restoration, every once in a while will run into a surprise. And as we sat there and we took up the parking lot, we ended up coming up with surprises that were there. So what happened was we had to address that. But again, all the work that's being done, the brickwork, all the things that was done to be restored, that part of it is going to be reimbursed through the fund from the Long Island Railroad. Yes?
Since I live in the west, and I don't use the Nassau Boulevard station, and the west has been disrupted by the Long Island Railroad.
Sure.
Will there be money left to add green space and trees from the money, that the Long Island Railroad gave the village?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's still substantial money left in the fund itself. It was one of the things that we had done. And as a matter of fact, when you talk about things that were done in the west, I'm sure you've been, or I don't know if you've ever been over to the Stewart Manor Station. That Stewart Manor Station was all redone by the Long Island Railroad, and then what happened was they also repaved. We also repaved the entire parking lot in the Long Island Railroad, and that was also reimbursed by the Long Island Railroad, which had nothing to do with our fund. The they had given us, but that was part of what they had given us when they started the work. Because, again, obviously there were a lot more people going to the Stewart Manor Station when they were doing New Hyde Park. But to your point, yes, absolutely, there will be money for that. And again, Steve can address more of that because I know he's been on the committee. So in addition to the parking lot, there are two other parts of Nassau Boulevard. If you go to the south of the tracks, there are parking lots there that are just simply paved. And those lots have not been repaired in a long time. So that's actually part of our road work. And what they're doing is that, I believe it may be this fall or possibly in the spring if they don't get to it, but this fall what they're going to look to do is they're going to also look to pave the lots to the south side. The only other part of this, which is one of the parts that we talked about again when I met with the Historical Society a while back, is that they also cared about the wall. And in addition to the wall, there were also a couple of urns there that had been there for many years. Now, one of the urns, I believe, is actually broken, but the other urn is not. So what's going to happen is the village will have to pay for that restoration of that brick wall. But one of the things we're going to do is we're actually going to take a mold of the existing urn that's there. And by doing that, what we'll then be able to do is we'll be able to create that second urn from the one that has been destroyed and maintain the look on that wall. So again, that's the development that's there. The last thing is that we have a presentation that will be coming tomorrow night, which will be from CNY, and that'll be giving everyone an update on St. Paul's. If you've driven by St. Paul's, one of the things you may have seen is that you may have seen that all of the windows and the openings that you see, that we used to see from the street, they have all been closed. That's been an ongoing project. And again, one of the things that we need to do, regardless of what we ever eventually do with St. Paul's, bottom line is that, again, I've always believed you have to give the residents a choice. So the first thing you have to do is you have to stabilize it. You have to preserve what you have in the building itself. So what happens is, the first thing is the closure of the windows. The second thing is, if you notice as you pass by the building, you will see that all the vines and everything else were taken down. And again, all those vines in the area were causing deterioration on the building itself. The only other things that the board has approved is the stabilization and the abatement of the building. Now, the abatement is all the chemicals and everything else that's in St. Paul's. Now, again, whether or not you like St. Paul's, you don't like St. Paul's, if you say, you know what, we should just tear the building down. Some people say we should develop it, we should do something with it. No matter what you do, as I mentioned before, you have to abate what's inside the building. So whatever chemicals you have, whatever asbestos you have, oils, whatever in the world it is, all of that stuff has to be cleaned up in the inside of the building. So those are the only steps that have been authorized by this board. I know we've seen many presentations over the years, but basically we're going about it in a step-by-step way. So other than that, yes, you have a question?
Did they close the holes in the roof?
That's one of the things they do is with the stabilization. When CNY gives the presentation tomorrow, hopefully you'll see that they'll give us updates on everything that they're working on.
Where will that be?
The presentation will be here. It's going to be in this facility. And as a matter of fact, the gentleman from YouTube, one of the reasons that we also move our presentations to the larger venues is so that this way the gentleman from YouTube could actually come and he could actually then tape the meetings. Because I know a lot of people, they also enjoy being able to watch the meetings and see what's going on. So it'll be here at Kluwer Hall. We'll actually be able to put in more people than we had before. We're going to move probably the board will be up on the stage, and this way it'll give us room for a little bit of chairs. Okay? And again, just that you understand, one of the things, speaking just as a board member, and I'll just speak for myself, is that one of the things we've tried to do is we're trying to bring back, and we attempted to bring back some sense of normalcy to what we are doing. And that's a challenging thing in today's environment. So one of the things that we did last time is that we had received a lot of resident comments that said, I really would like to come back to meetings. So one of the things we did was we had no idea what the response would be. So what we did was we actually held it in the field house. I think it was with the best intention. I know we were set up for 125 people to be able to sit there. Unfortunately, I don't think that the sound system worked very well. And I will tell you that there was so much heavy bass, I even had a difficulty at times listening to what was going on. So one of the things we did was we figured, okay, we just lost the vote. There we go.
No.
why I'm not a technology person. So anyway, so what happened was is that we were going to move everything into here. The acoustics and everything else should be better. You should be able to hear. The gentleman will still be able to come in to tape. And again, bottom line is that, well, again, what you do is anything with the board, you try to do certain things, you try to listen to when residents and people reach out to you, and we try to take things step by step. So again, if you have an opportunity to come tomorrow, we should have more seating than we have today, because I know we can only put 50 people in here. Hopefully at that point, we'll be able to put in maybe, hopefully, maybe 75 or 80 people. And again, we'll see what kind of a turnout that we have. So, yes?
Will that be a live stream tomorrow?
I'm sorry.
Hold on one second.
Will we have Zoom as well? No, we won't have Zoom as well.
YouTube will be going up to watch it on a future date?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, so the question is, you're not going to have it live streamed tomorrow, it'll be...
No, we're not going to, we won't have it live stream. Board of Trustee meetings is at 8 o'clock. By the way, for anyone who's interested, we are having a meeting at 7 o'clock, which the people from Revamp are going to come to talk to us in regards to the polls. And we've invited several politicians, many of them who had come and attended different rallies. And we asked them to come as well so that we could sit down and talk as a community and exchange thoughts and ideas in regards to it. So that'll start at 7 o'clock, and then our regular board meeting will be at 8. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Jermaine? Is that Jermaine Greco? Is that library trustee? Do you have a report?
Defer till November? Defer till November?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jermaine. So at this time, I would like to introduce to you our Firehouse Committee members. When I call your name, please stand. Maureen Traxler, Chair. Cosmo Veneziale. Carl Russo. T.J. Michon. Steve Garay. And Nick Bernice and Austin Murphy unfortunately cannot be with us this evening. This group has worked endlessly together for the presentation here this evening, and I hope you enjoy it. I thank each and every one of you for all your hard work and efforts. I do appreciate that. We will do. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello? Hello, everything? Okay, I just do, Cosmo is going to give the presentation. We'll turn down the lights. Most of what he'll have on the screen. At the end of the presentation, we'll open it up to any questions, comments, and then Cosmo will point out also some designs that he has on the easel and what they represent, and everybody can look at them after. Right? So I'll hand it off to Cosmo.
I just wanted to mention that Cosmo is an architect as well as a member of the Architectural Design Review Board, and as TJ said, he'll be presenting an alternate plan for Firehouse 2. And thank you so much, Cosmo. Always technical stuff. I'm so sorry. I did forget to mention Remy. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Always providing us legal advice. Thank you, Remy. My apologies.
Everyone hear me without the microphone? Yeah. Does everyone hear me without the microphone? No? Can you hear me now? Yes. Great. Welcome, everyone. The Edgemere Firehouse, also known as Station Number 2, was built in 1931. Designed by architects George Nichols and William Pearsall, the Edgemere Firehouse was designed as a substation in the Tudor style. And these are some photographs of the Edgemere Firehouse facades and exterior details. Existing building is constructed with structural steel framing, concrete double T's, limestone, masonry, and a slate shingle roof. During our March site visit, there was no evidence of facade displacement anywhere, and there is none presently. The lack of scheduled maintenance of the facades, windows, and roof has allowed water infiltration and interior damage. None of the interior damage has caused structural failure, and with remedial repairs, existing damaged conditions can be restored. Restoration, adaptive reuse, and enlargement of historic and non-historic buildings is not a new idea. Surrounding communities such as Inwood, Woodmere, and Manhasset have restored, renovated, and enlarged their firehouses with great success and at the least cost to their residents. Here are some photographs of these particular firehouses. We have Inwood, Woodmere, and Manhasset. The additions to these firehouses are seamless. They match the original design exactly. The Western Property Owners Firehouse Committee would like to present an alternative plan to be considered. Our committee has determined, after much analysis, the repair, restoration, and enlargement of the Edgemere Firehouse is not only feasible, but is strongly recommended as the approach the Board of Trustees should adopt. At the initial PKD presentation to the Board of Trustees, one photograph was the most telling. The photo showed the narrow clearance between the bay door opening and fire apparatus. However, our committee, during our site visit, observed the fire engine parked in the house bay and had adequate height clearance but tight lateral dimensions. Our proposed design can provide for properly sized bay door opening widths, as well as an increased height with the design of a structural steel transfer girder and foundation system. Decades ago, the Edgemere Firehouse bay door openings were enlarged in a similar way. Again, this can be done to enlarge the existing bay door openings to accommodate the proposed fire apparatus. It should be known that the purchase of new fire apparatus is usually done based on specifications provided to the manufacturer, since most of the fire apparatus are custom built. Current trends are for a smaller, more maneuverable, fuel-efficient apparatus, especially in low-rise suburban and urban areas. Our proposed design would restore and enlarge the existing firehouse and include state-of-the-art power, data, and communication infrastructure. The existing firehouse would be renovated and modified. The existing apparatus bays would be altered to house fire apparatus. Proposed enlargement would have a new west wing to accommodate the fire engine, pumper, or other apparatus, and a new east wing. The east wing is designed to provide the program spaces requested by the fire department, such as a training room, meeting room,
all-purpose flexible spaces are proposed for the existing second floor, which is now used as storage. New bathrooms will be constructed at the first and second floors, and ADA accessibility will be via a new two-stop elevator. Our alternative design includes only selective demolition of the existing firehouse. Restoration of the firehouse and the proposed east and west wings can also provide for phased construction. New facade areas would include new masonry and stone to match the original brick and limestone. The existing slate roof will be repaired and missing slate shingles replaced with matching shingles. The existing roof has lasted almost 90 years. The average useful life of slate roof is approximately 150 years. Restoration of the Edgemere firehouse and proposed ground level enlargement would be seamless, affording Garden City decades of utility. The projected estimated construction costs for the proposed restoration and construction can be extrapolated from the estimated costs prepared by Cameron Engineering and PKAD. Based on the aforementioned, $3.56 million would be for restoration and compliance with ADA requirements with interior access and bathroom alterations. The $3.56 million amount does not include a two-stop elevator, which is part of the new construction budget. $3.56 million portion to the existing firehouse, gross floor area of 4,300 square feet, would yield a cost of over $800 per square foot, which is very high based on industry standards, ranging from $300 to $500 for premium restoration and repairs. Proposed new construction is estimated to cost another $3 million for the proposed 3,000 square foot new construction at approximately $1,000 per square foot. Additional cost savings could be realized with comprehensive construction documents and a competitive bidding environment. Our construction cost estimate of approximately $6.6 million would restore and allow the Edgemere Firehouse to provide service to our community for another 90 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cosmo. We're going to open it up to any questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Is there anybody from the village here that is recommending they tear this building down and put up some other building? And the directors that are there?
Tear the firehouse down?
Yeah. Who's telling us we have to do that? The directors in the village, I assume, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you one of those, miss?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm going to defer to our trustee.
Is there one here?
There's two here. We have two
Oh,
trustees.
there's two here.
Yeah.
Why the hell do you think we need to tear it down? What do we need it down for?
Hi, I'm Bob Goldberg.
I'm Bill Forsythe.
Okay, I'm one of the village trustees.
Okay?
All right. First of all, we did not say that we were absolutely tearing down the building. What happened was that we've been working with the fire department for a number of years, actually, looking at the firehouse.
Yeah.
There's been a long, ongoing discussion, and what happened was that what we do right now is we hired PKAD, an engineering and architectural firm, that will be making a presentation to the village, either sometime, I think, in October or possibly beginning of November.
Yeah, we hired and waste all this damn money for nothing.
And what they're going to do is that they will present to us what they feel is the feasible and the correct thing to do with the building. And again, whether or not we agree with it or don't agree with it, again, if any of you remember when we sat and we looked at the senior center, I'm sure many of you remember that discussion. And when we did, what was originally presented, and I was actually, it was one of the first projects that I became when I was involved, what happened was that I think that plan probably changed 6 to 8 times. So one of the things I think that happens is that when you're involved in a project of this magnitude, what you do is you take a starting point, you get your information, and then what you do is then you move forward with that. Mrs. Delacona in their committee had reached out to us every single question, every single thing that they've asked. I've looked, and Steve and I have worked with the village in order to get them the information. I think Cosmo has given some excellent drawings and some excellent information. So the bottom line is that as a board, we will sit there and we're going to take the information from PKAD, and then we have to further investigate and see where you go from there.
Why are you telling us we have to change the firehouse from what it is right now versus what you want to do?
Okay, I realize for some reason you're extremely angry, and I'm trying to say to you that we have not made that decision yet, that the board
What are
has
we
not
even
said.
looking at? Is there anything
The
wrong with
reason for it
that?
is, okay, the reason for it is because you have a building which is 90 years old.
Okay.
You have a building
I'm
there.
getting close to that, by the way.
God bless. And I think that what happens is that when you look at a building like that, what you have to do is you have to consider the usage, you have to consider the cost, you have to consider the safety and the services that we want to have provided. So one of the things that we've also talked about in the past is that one of the things that we want to do is also to enable us to have a ladder truck, which will also be in the Edgemere Firehouse. That is something that we have never had there.
Why do you need it, sir?
Well,
Why
first
do
of
you
all,
need that? There's not one building on this side of the village that is over about 40 feet tall. More than sufficient with the 2 engines that we've got.
well, first of all, here's what we're going to do is I'm going to answer one more question, but I'm not going to sit there and just allow you to monopolize this. You can get up and ask me a question again. But here's, hold on, I will. Okay, so in answering your question, the thing of it is, I happen to live in the west. Matter of fact, I live right down the block, and my house is a split. And not only that, too, in addition to that, if you ever look at a lot of the homes that have been built around the village, I think they call them McMansions. And there are several of them that are rather high. And the bottom line is that every single call to every single firehouse that you have, that the ladder trucks always go there. So the bottom line is that what we're looking for, we're looking to see if we can work to have a ladder truck there, because it's a lot better for the people who live in that community to have a vehicle that to be able to get to the scene quicker. So that's the reason why we're looking at that.
Thank you.
I have a question. One second, just to answer this gentleman's question also. As far as this committee, which is made up, of the people from the West, and I think our directors agree with the committee, we do not recommend tearing down the firehouse. We'll start over there.
Donald Cloud, was this committee formed after we hired an architectural firm?
Yeah, I think so. The camera engineering part was...
Can I ask why, since we have a bunch of experts here, and Cosmo's done historically, why we don't have a committee to make recommendations about what we should do before we spend $500,000 on an architectural engineering firm? And my follow-up question would be, if we go with this $6 to $7 million, or $5 to $6 million, is the $500,000, and that number could be off, I'm not exactly sure.
$542,000.
I apologize. Cosmo, if we go with this, is the $542,000 we spent on the architectural firm, is that wasted, or are you guys going to be able to use it?
I don't know what PKD is doing right now,
So it's wasted.
you're not.
That's my feeling.
Okay, so what I would think in the future would be great if the board would put together a committee of citizens to make a recommendation.
Our approach, this committee's approach is very different from what PKD is proposing. Right? PKD is proposing a brand new firehouse. It's almost 10,000 square feet and almost $10 million and possibly more.
But
Right? Our committee has analyzed the existing firehouse. We know it can be restored. We know we can accommodate the program. We know we can save some money. And we don't have to have a gargantuan firehouse in the western section.
Okay, and the $500,000 in architectural fees, are those of value to you now?
There's no value whatsoever.
Okay, so rather than having a bunch of citizens together, making a recommendation, we wrote a $500,000 check to an architectural firm, and now we're doing, does this seem backwards to me, or am I just crazy because I'm from the other side of town?
My opinion as a professional, there's a lack of
Let me ask one other
And
question.
let me go further.
I'm sorry.
We requested any information about a master plan. They don't have a master plan. There are 3 firehouses that serve our...
Do they have a risk analysis?
Excuse me?
Do they have a risk analysis? Do you know whether we need 3 firehouses or 7 firehouses?
We've asked for information. This board has been very, very diligent. We've been very patient. We've asked for information, as much information as we can possibly get from the fire chief and from the board of trustees, and we have not gotten all the information we need. We have probably only 50% of the information we requested.
So I don't understand why
So we're
we...
making, this committee is making assumptions on certain things that may be accurate, may not be accurate, but I know as an architect, designing this firehouse with the alarm, we have greater flexibility in our design.
Then let me ask my last question if I could. Do I have time for one more question? Is there... Bob,
Okay, well, but hold on a second. We got a lot of things that are being said here. Listen, I understand this is an emotional issue, but let's try to put things in perspective.
it's dollars and cents.
The
It's
first-
not emotion.
Okay, so either we're going to have a civil conversation or we're not. I'm trying to answer questions. So you just can't jump down at me when I take 30 seconds to try to give you some reference. The first thing that I'm sorry, that I disagree with is when you sit there and you're telling the public here that basically, at best, 50% of your questions have been answered. This is not the case. You sat there, you asked us for the reports, you asked us for everything else. Karen Altman and I mean, I have been in contact with the chief and everything else, and they have sat there. All of these things are available, and again, this is what I said to everyone. I said, listen, if in the event any of you besides the committee wanted to ask the things that they've asked for, bottom line is they're affordable. So bottom line is that there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't give you to. So when you sit there and you're asking for information, if you have things that you've asked for that you haven't received, and I've said this to Maureen, and I've talked to her many times, you can ask her. Bottom line is, give me the list, I'll get you the answers that you want. So to sit there and to say, no, let me talk, and then you can say whatever you want.
We've asked for this information several times, we have not received.
Okay. All right. So in addition to that, one of the other things that happened here was, and again, it's been mentioned, that this is something that all of a sudden was sprung on us. And let me tell you, here's what I've been seeing lately. And Councilman just made mention to this. It's not 10 million, 12 million, 14 million, 15 million. My feeling is, why don't you make it 30 million? Sounds even better.
Money's cheap.
Okay. Well, again, my point is that that's not what's happening. What happened was when PKAD came and gave the presentation, and yes, you can use that point that many people have said many times online, and I know Trustee Dorney said it, and I think it's a silly comment that he made. But the bottom line is that when PKAD came in there, what they did was they said that based upon when they wanted to make the building larger, because they wanted to be able to have the ladder trucks over there, they had said that they estimated that the cost of the building could go somewhere between 8 to 10 million. Now, this is a transcript from that Board of Trustees meeting. I will read it to you. Frank Gucciato from PKAD Architect said, we are still in the early design phase. We are in the schematics, and someone brought up earlier the point that maybe with the increase of the bay and the increase of the size of the second floor, that maybe we can forego the basement. The basement is roughly 1,000 square feet of space that could potentially be saved, or really shifted to the space above. It would maybe a large wash. We just need to develop this a little bit more so that we can understand how the space works. So one of the things that happened was during the Board of Trustees meeting, when they presented this increase to us, and they wanted to increase the footage, I said, hold on a second, you talk about expanding the basement. So I said, look, what if we didn't do that basement? What now if we basically sat there and moved that from the basement, what you wanted to do there, and move it to the additional square footage? I said to him, wouldn't this be a wash? He said yes. So all I'm saying to you is that as I've talked to several other people here about this, is that why don't we wait until PKAD comes in, they give the presentation, and then what we'll do is we'll sit there, and I have no problem. I've said this to Maureen, I've said it to I'll say it to Cosmo, I've said it before. Bottom line is we're going to sit there and make comparisons of what Cosmo was presenting and what we're dealing with. Then we'll be happy to do that as trustees. Both Steve and I have both said that. I might as well keep the microphone because I guess you got other questions. I mean, go ahead. Whoever. Yes.
Mike McVeigh, I'm a retired New York City firefighter. I've worked in firehouses that are well over 100 years old.
no issues. What we're talking about is a glorified garage. Let's not lose fact of that. We would not spend $10 million to house garbage trucks. It's a very, fire department is a very romanticized thing. I understand it. It's very emotional for many people. My fear is, that you're talking about PKAD having a meeting for us in November. That should have been done back in March, when Trustee Downey said, let's face it, folks, we're building a new firehouse. He did say that. It sounded like we had no choice.
You're absolutely correct, he did.
And my fear is, to this man's point, we've already spent $542,000. How are we going to come back from that? That's a lot of money.
Well, again, when you take a look at the firehouse, what we're doing is we're trying to look at not only, as you say, storage, but what happens is the interior of the building, what can actually be used in the building, okay? I know that Cosmo, again, he has a lot of expertise in this area, but with all due respect to Cosmo, there are other architects and engineers that may have a different opinion or whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically listen to the different people who present the things to us. Because when you take a look at the building, okay, when you take a look at the building, Cosmo basically takes a look at the building. He feels that, in a nutshell, the bones are solid, and the bottom line is that this building can be saved and reutilized. The PKD, the architects and engineers that we've had look at it, have serious questions that can be done. So again, the bottom line is that as trustees, what we have to do is we're going to sit there and we make a decision to go down a certain path. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the information and we're going to make the decision. So the bottom line is, I think what makes sense is that when you're talking about this type of investment, you want to make the right decision. And again, there's also a combination between what you want to do there and then also the look of the building. Listen, I live right down the block from this. And the bottom line is that what we want to do is that we want to have a firehouse that stays within the character of what we've had there for so many years. And I think the people who live here would agree with that. Now, from what I've seen from Cosmo's drawings, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cosmo, unless you changed it, is that in addition to the original building, you were also talking about putting one building on either side of the firehouse, correct? On the east side and the west side. So in other words, now what we're going to do is that now instead of expanding the existing building, we're now going to add 2 structures on either side of the firehouse, which will then hold the fire trucks. So my point to you is that, again, when you start to look at that now you're saying I have the cost of the building, I have the additional buildings I'm putting down there, and now when I'm adding 2 structures to this, you're going to change the look of that building. And again, what's going to be the total square footage? I don't know. But again, these are all questions that I think we proceed one by one. And I think that Cosmo has brought many good ideas. I think he and his group have brought many things that the Board of Trustees has to consider and look at.
I agree. I agree. The other thing is, let's also not lose fact, the firehouse is transient. Nobody lives there. Nobody stays there. People, I don't know if everybody understands, there's nobody in that firehouse. So when they talk about manpower, there's nobody staying there. I don't understand the whole manpower aspect. And you, sir, said
you actually have several volunteers who do spend time there and will spend time there. Again, once the facility will be redone. So the bottom line is that's to say that is not 100% correct.
And you also talked about the National Boulevard Railroad. You said it's a gem. I feel Station 2 is a gem, and I don't think it should be disturbed.
And again, one of the things that I think that you have to realize, like I said, when we first sat down, and again, Mrs. Del Pono was there, and Brian, we spoke about the railroad station. One of the things we did was that we looked at a lot of different alternatives. And what we did as a board is we sat there, we gathered all the information, we looked at the different choices, and we made the decision. So the bottom line is that like in any project that we have done, whether or not it's the firehouse, whether or not it's the senior center, whether or not it's been the railroad station that many people are so excited that we were able to work and to keep it, it's a process.
I personally feel that a rehab was not given a fair shake.
Well, again, we haven't been there yet. So, yeah. Yes.
Bob, you said that the reason for this view of the fire department, the firehouses because of a tower ladder?
No, I said one of the things that we're looking to do is that as this firehouse, we would look to move in the future. Because again, what you want to do is you want to have a firehouse that will service for the next 90 years. One of the things that we're looking to do is that we're looking so that this way we can now have a ladder truck that will be put there. Whether or not, if we looked at Cosmo's plan, in the buildings that he suggested on either side, you would put the ladder truck there, correct, Cosmo? Absolutely. So the bottom line is that one of the things that we want to do is to be able to provide a ladder truck that we've never had in the Edgemere firehouse.
Okay, so here's a couple of things. First of all, to tear this down is affecting the integrity of the community because Garden City is based upon its historical value. And tearing down historical buildings like this and recreating something that you would find in a new development, it really affects the overall value of property in the community. If you're going to tear down all of these buildings, I mean, what? And I know you mentioned the senior center, but I don't know anything about the senior center because I'm only 40 years old, but I'm invested in this community because I've been living here for 12 years. And on top of that, you mentioned McMansions. My brother was the fire chief of Valley Stream for 4 years, and then he also was Nassau County Fire Marshal before he became a Nassau County Police Sergeant. There is no reason, and he will tell you, any fire chief will tell you, in this community, McMansion or not, there's no need for a tower ladder truck to be here. So
Well,
you
again,
might want that here.
Well, again, I'm not a fireman, and I always say,
Okay, but I'm telling you our concerns. So you're trying to tear down something or redo something for no reason.
Okay, well, first of all, I always say I'm not a fireman, and many times TJ and I over the years have talked, and I even said to other people that, I don't speak fireman, okay? But one of the things that I do know is that ladders are sent to every single fire that we have. Matter of fact, most recently, I'm sure that you saw or heard about the fire that occurred over right next to the firehouse, as a matter of fact. And what happened was that you had various fire trucks who were there with their ladders, who basically had to use that in order to try to take the fire down. So again, the ladders, whether or not you realize it or not, are used. And again, like for example, like in my home, if in the event there was a fire and there was someone stuck on the second floor, I would hope that we have a ladder truck in order to get to them. So you may not agree with that, but again, that's what's provided.
The fire department,
I'm sorry.
Microphone.
It's nice to have a tower ladder, but a two-story building.
No, a ladder truck is not a nice to have.
So just since Bob brought me into that, I'd just like to make a couple of comments quick on some of the comments that were made. So first of all, the comment about deciding on what to go to a new firehouse completely. So you are aware of the Cameron Engineering report, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did the Cameron Engineering report recommend tearing down the firehouse?
I don't remember right now, TJ.
Okay, well I can tell you it didn't. It had two options. It said the building was structurally sound, and at the time, the Cameron Engineering before PK was told that they wanted to put a ladder truck there, and included an expansion to include a ladder truck. So sometime between the end of that report, the Board of Trustees, correct me if I'm wrong, decided to hire PKAD to develop a plan to tear down the firehouse and build a new firehouse. And you allotted $500,000 to do so, correct?
What the board did was that when we spoke to PKAD, the impression that they gave us is that the amount of money that would be spent in order to attempt to preserve the firehouse would be, I don't know if I would say cost efficient, it would be better for us to put a new building in there because it would basically be able to provide different things that you would not be able to do with the existing building. Because the bottom line is no matter what you do, you still have a building that's 90 years old. And in case you just don't understand the building itself, again, the second floor of the building, actually from what I've been told many years ago, when I didn't live here at the time, it's a rather thick floor, and they used to actually put cars in there, and they used to actually repair them. That long stack that you see behind the firehouse, that's actually where they used to dry hoses. Okay? So the bottom line is that, again, that building was built for a different time. So the decision that the Board of Trustees needs to make is that we have to sit there and we have to say, what is the best way for us to go forward? And again, I believe, we can say this, quite surely, is that Cosmo's opinion of the inside of the building and the structurally sound and the issues that the building has is different than what has been presented to us by PKD. So again, like I said, you have two different people, and you have two different engineers, and you have different people with different opinions.
But just to answer that question, so originally you still didn't answer the question. From the Cameron Engineering report, the board, did you put an RFP out for architects to present a plan for what you wanted to do?
Was an RFP put out?
No.
There was no RFP.
No. So what happened was that we had been working with them, the fire department had, and what happened was because of their experience in the area, what we did was that we had them put this together so that this way.
Is this a firm that's done historical firehouses before? Because there are firms that specialize in that. Is this a firm that's done firehouses before, architectural?
Yeah.
So are you aware of your own procurement policy?
TJ, I'm not going to take a test here.
Well,
Okay, so TJ, here's what I say. Here's what I will acknowledge, and I said this before. You've been a fireman for many years. Okay. What happens is the Board of Trustees sat here with our fire department. We went over what was presented to us, and we sat down with the architects and engineers who presented us their opinion, and based upon the information was given to us, we decided a path to go. So, sitting here and asking me about specific, what about this report, what about that report, whatever.
Well, what you just said doesn't make sense because you hired the village, you and the trustees,
Yes.
hired Cameron Engineering to come in and evaluate all three firehouses.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
They did not recommend tearing down Station 2.
Okay.
So now you took a report that you hired an engineering company, gave you back a study, and then you say the trustees and the fire chiefs
Right.
then had a conversation, and you and the fire chiefs decided that it was better to tear down the building. Let's go get this architectural firm without an RFP.
No, what happened was, no, that's not what happened. What happened was, and again, we keep going through what happened was that we hired PKAD based upon what our fire department felt that were the needs that they felt that they needed in order to provide the protection to the village at the levels that they feel that we need to do. It's one of the reasons why we spent over $1 million on the fire station in the central, which is the main firehouse. And now what we did was, we have all three firehouses. So first we addressed the main one. Now we're addressing the one on Edgemere, and then we'll be addressing the one in the east.
Another $10 million.
So again, your procurement policy states that the only time that you can go out and spend that kind of money on a consultant or anybody is if you can decide that they're the only architectural firm that can provide you with what you're going to do. Now, I'm sure there's, you said it, plenty of architects with different opinions. So I'm still curious why an RFP wasn't put out to have architectural firms come in and bid on.
Based upon PKAD's experience and that they have been working with the fire department in regards to what they felt was needed, the board made the decision that we would hire them and have them present their information to us. So again, I keep going back to the same point. So, okay.
Trustees, members of the WPOA, Cosmo, and my friends and neighbors here in the village, I've said this before, Garden City is a special place. We have one of the largest concentrations of buildings and structures on the National Register of Historic Places. These structures and buildings, even if they're not on the National Register, such as the firehouse, which is about 90 years old, contribute to what makes Garden City special. This is what keeps your property values up. You can go to any community and see any old structures. but people come to Garden City, they drive through here, they admire our community, they admire the historic buildings, our wide tree-lined streets. There's absolutely no reason to demolish this structure. Cosmo's designs are unbelievable. They're sensitive to the existing structure. They're useful. They'll serve the purposes of the fire department. And being the village we are, we should be striving to win awards. Cosmo's plan should be submitted to the AIA for awards. We should be seeking the best projects possible, not any old project. And in this day and age, to be considering demolishing anything makes no sense whatsoever. Anyone with any experience or expertise, whether they're environmentalists or architects or engineers, will tell you that demolishing existing buildings is bad for the environment. There's something called embodied energy. Think about all the energy that went into building this building in the first place. And this building can very easily, as Cosmo and his committee pointed out, be adapted to the use that we need. It'll maintain the integrity of the existing building, and it'll be done cost effectively. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Marty Bernardo. I'm a member of the WPA Fire Committee. And I just wanted to respond to the gentleman's earlier questions about whether a risk assessment or risk analysis was prepared by the village or by the fire department. That was one of the questions the fire committee of the WPOA asked. And we were given a 2012 study that wasn't a risk assessment or a risk analysis, which is actually recommended by the National Fire Standards Association.
That's what I was asking.
And actually, the 2012 study that we did receive related to staffing of the fire department and not necessarily to the needs relating to apparatus and firehouses. And it was a study done 8 years ago. And one of the recommendations in that 2012 study was that a risk analysis be performed, and one was not provided. I do agree with Mr. Bolbrook that they have cooperated and provided some information, but there's a lot of information that we haven't received, such as Cosmo pointed out, a master plan. What is the basis for this large firehouse? And just echoing some of the comments that some of our neighbors here have expressed, why is there a need for a tower fire truck? The need for bunk beds, a kitchen. These are things that haven't been in our firehouse for 90 years. And so we'd like to see a justification of why we need to change the use of that building that would lead to a tear down and a massive expansion of the building. And as to one of the comments, Mr. Roebuck, that you mentioned to Cosmo, I think part of the reason why the plans had two wings, it was based upon the recommendations, I think, of the fire chief, that they have this expanded use. And so I think one of the questions that has to be asked is, do we need what are the needs of the fire department? Do we need this fire truck in the western section? What will be the impact of moving this fire truck from other places? As well as what is our inventory and apparatus equipment, which we haven't received from the village.
Okay, let me just address a couple of those things. First of all, right now, in front of all of you, I've said this before, I'll look right to Maureen and I'll say, any question that we have not given you, and you probably have requested, I want to say probably, 5 times, different things from us. Bottom line is whatever questions you want, anything you have, no problem. Send me an email, just like we did on everything else. We'll work on it, okay? That's the first thing. I'll say that right in front of DOA people. The second thing is that you talk about what's inside the building. So right now, if one of the firemen are involved in the firehouse, one of the things that we're told that happens is that when they come back from a fire, that if they want to shower or they want to clean up or whatever, they actually have to go to the main firehouse. And then on top of that, one of the things that was mentioned, one of the things that's mentioned, unfortunately, they feel that they're not comfortable with the facility there.
The bathroom was rebuilt not even 10 years ago.
And then the other thing that was also mentioned, I'm sorry. I apologize. But anyway, like I said, as far as any type of questions or anything else, we'll absolutely look to get them to the committee. Not a problem.
I guess what I don't understand, Bob, because you and I have gone back and forth about the expertise of the BOT and how great managers they are. I don't understand why the town would reach out to citizens like Cosmo. In all fairness, Cosmo and I have done historical rehab in the Seaport buildings that are, Cosmo, 150 years old? 160 years old? So 90 doesn't seem all that old to me. I don't know why you wouldn't have reached out, formed a committee of people like this, given them everything before you gave it to an architectural firm, and got an opinion from them before you spent $534,000. So you can say, well, look at this, but if you end up going this route, you've wasted $534,000. And I think it was John Sullivan said that's a drop in the bucket. That's a lot of money. And I think that the casualness about spending $534,000 without an RFP and before deciding what direction you're going to take makes no sense whatsoever. This is entirely backwards. That committee should have been formed and advised before you spent $500 grand.
Okay. So, I have been a trustee for 8 years. And it doesn't make a difference to me if it's $535 or $534,000. I never treat the village's money like this. Chump change. Now, just let me speak. What happens is that I understand you look at something in a vacuum, and you sit there and you say the cost or whatever. One of the things we try to do is we try to get things correct. Now, I have respect for Cosmo. I know his background. I know all his information and everything else. But when you're running a village and you're doing things like this, you don't sit there and you don't go to an individual resident and say, so what do you think first? What are you doing? And again, let me just address this. The bottom line is that what the village does is the village goes out there and the village hires the people that we believe are the best people to hire based upon their credentials, based upon their experience. Now, for example, people live in the West. They did all the construction with Homestead. Is the school system going to sit there and say to anybody, architects or engineers, you want to sit there and look at the plans for Homestead? No, I won't sit that. Whenever the village sat there and the village has done other projects, again, I use the senior center, but again, if any of you have young children, I'm sure that you sat there and you've been to the beautiful fields that we have now at Community Park. We have 2 baseball fields there, I believe 3 now, and we now have the old multi-purpose field. Bottom line is that when they were laid out and they were constructed and they were built, we didn't go around and say, oh, by the way, does anyone else know? What the village did was you go out there and they hire people. Now again, one of the nice things about our form of government is that if in the event someone with Cosmo's experience and with other people who are knowledgeable sit there and say, listen, I understand the route that you're going, but I feel that, you know what, and I think everyone will agree that no one has a monopoly on ideas, and I think that the direction that you're going is wrong. Again, that's Cosmo's opinion, and again, like I said to you, I can take 3 architects or 3 engineers, and I can have 6 different opinions. So to me, what ends up happening is the village makes a decision based upon everything that's presented to us. We make a decision on the direction to go, and that's what we're doing. And that's one of the things that both Steve and I have promised this POA, and that we've always done, and I've done for 8 years, is that we'll sit there, we'll put it all together. Now again, you might sit there and say, well, you could do this cheaper, you could do that cheaper. You know what, there's a lot of different ways that you can do things. What we try to do is we try to get things done, and we try to do them in the best way that we believe makes sense.
Bob, you misstated what I said. I did not say go ask individuals, because I've been here 60 years. I don't know how long you've been here. Let me tell you how it used to work. The Board of Trustees would grab 10 or 20 people from town that everybody respected and they knew, and they would set up the board first. I'm not asking, I don't think you should go ask people in front of Starbucks because they're walking out with a latte. The town has a lot of talented, smart people that'll put a lot of time in. The fact that you don't create a board to analyze something like this with Cosmo and 5 other architects, not 1 architect, to recommend to you before you spend $534,000, I think you've done it exactly backwards. That's my opinion.
Again, if we look at a different project, 1,4-dioxane. So 1,4-dioxane on water, everyone was crazy about that. Everyone said, what are we doing? What are we doing? A year before that it was public, what we did is that we sat there and we became aware of
What are we saying? Can we talk about this issue and keep it in context?
And what we did is that we went out there and we hired a couple of people who were considered to be experts in this field in the nation. Now, right now, we're probably at least a year and a half ahead of most people with the 1/4 dioxide. And there you're probably talking about a project that's somewhere in the area of 40 to 45 million. Now, about 9 million so far is going to be reimbursed by the state. So now you're probably talking about 35 to 36 million.
I don't know what that has to do with the question.
So Bob, here's a simple question. On this subject, you hired PKAD.
With no RFP.
No RFP, but you hired PKAD. You sent them out with $300,000 to design a plan for the firehouse. They came back with a plan back in February. We presented that plan. Now they come back in July and said, the plan that we have is no good because we didn't realize we need to make it bigger so we can put a ladder truck.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Okay, so let me finish, then you can respond.
Okay.
Either way, whatever the reason was for the change, it cost the village $42,000 to do a change on something that PKAD should have been provided with immediately. And the Cameron Engineering Report, which came before PKAD, stated in it that they wanted to add a ladder truck. So I may be wrong, but I watched the July meeting, and basically they said the reason for the expansion was because they didn't factor in the larger ladder truck, and now they had to make it a little bit wider and a little bit longer to expand the second floor. So why didn't PKAD know before they did the original plan that that's what they needed to do, and then not cost us an extra $42,000?
As PKD was going along with their plans, which they had done, what happened was they immediately stopped. And the reason that they did was because as the fire department and as the chiefs were taking a look at this, they really said, you know, one of the things that we need to do, since the firehouse on Edgemere is the farthest away from the other two, is that we think that one of the things that would be the best to do would be provide the residents in the West to be able to have a ladder truck. In order to do that and to maintain the look of the building, what they had to do was they would have to increase the square footage, I think around 1,200 square feet of the building. So what happened was they said to PKAD, please stop what you're doing, because before you proceed further, we're going to estimate what the additional cost would be on this. And the bottom line is we're going to go to the Board of Trustees. They came to the Board of Trustees, they explained to us what they wanted to do. We said fine, and then they proceeded going forward. So PKAD did not put everything together and then all of a sudden go back to the drawing board. So that's not the way it
But
happened.
did it cost the village $42,000 more?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And you just repeated what I just said. Why wasn't PKAD originally told that they wanted a ladder truck if the Cameron Engineering Report, which you got almost a year before, said it needed a ladder truck?
Because as the chiefs continued to look at the firehouse, they felt that this would be an additional level of security that they felt would be useful and good for the residents of the West and the estates to have.
Okay, so when the chiefs told Cameron Engineering they wanted to have a ladder truck, then a year later they brought in PKAD. Why did the chiefs not tell PKAD from day one they wanted the ladder truck?
As I said, as they evaluated the building, as the building was coming together, they made the process, the thought, that they felt that having and adding the ladder truck would be there. So
the chiefs cost us
Bob, is that
$42,000.
a risk analysis to say?
whatever, I can't answer that question anymore. Anybody else have something else? I can't answer that one anymore.
One quick question. What's the timing? Is this a fait accompli? You kind of touched on it earlier. What goes next after all this discussion? Like,
Well, no, hold on one second. Let me just put my glasses back on. And again, I will read from the transcript of what PKAD said. We are still early in the design development stage. We still are in the schematics, and someone brought up earlier the point that maybe the increased bay and the increased size of the second floor could be basically swapped for the basement. So the bottom line is that's where we are right now. So what's going to happen is that there are several people here in this room that keep saying $10 million, $12 million, $15 million firehouse. Again, I understand if you want to use bigger numbers to make your point, but what I'm saying to you is that what I think makes sense, I'm not cavalier about anything. What I'm just saying to you is that if we're going to sit here and if we're going to talk about something, why don't we wait until PKAD presents this? And you know what? If PKAD turns around and comes in with a number in that area, you can throw that out until the cows come home. All I'm saying to you is that instead of us sitting here and just inflating a number, because as I said, the last number that we had was somewhere around 8 million. And when they turned around and they said, just to reiterate what I said before, we wanted to increase it. I said, wait a minute, do what you're going to do in the building, put it upstairs. Wouldn't that be a wash? And the guy from PKAD said, I hadn't thought about that, but you know what? In looking at it as you're saying it now, because we haven't gone into the details, it might be a wash. So my point to you is, all I'm saying to you as residents, listen, do I want to spend $10 million on a firehouse? No. Do I want to spend $6 million on a firehouse? No. I mean, to me, what I want to do is to make sure that that firehouse is able to provide us the level of protection and to be there for many years to come and to maintain the law. So again, all I'm saying to you is why don't we give a little ounce of patience, let PKAD come to us, give us their presentation, see what their numbers are, and then we can sit there and compare apples to apples.
So you can understand that we feel like this is being shoved down our throats, right? Back in March, Trustee Downey, Delaney said, we're building a new firehouse. So it looks like this thing has progressed so far. We spent $500,000. So you look at wants and needs, right? If you go to the chief and say, what do you want? He's going to say, yeah, if he asked my wife if she wanted a 10,000 square foot house, she's going to say, yeah. So the thing
luckily my wife wouldn't.
The trustees, in the future, moving forward, when the fire department comes to you and says, we want to spend $1.4 million on a ladder point apparatus, your first question should be, can it fit in the firehouse? Because there's a pattern with the fire departments in Long Island. They put the cart before the horse. They buy these gigantic rigs, and they have nowhere to put them, and guess what? Let's build a new firehouse.
And the bottom line is that I do understand your point, and when we did buy that rig, it does fit in our firehouse, because that's where it was going. Okay? So look, I understand also too, that you and there are some other people in the room that may have a different philosophy on size of trucks or things like that. But again, the village sat there and made a decision 2.5 years ago to go in a different direction with an all-volunteer fire department. When we did, we then made a decision on how we were going to run the fire department itself. So again, like I said to you, this is all a step-by-step process, and unfortunately, there are certain people who just jump to the end. And the bottom line is that I find it amazing how we can jump to the end, because like I said, people constantly say 10, 12, 15 million. Like I said, I don't know where people come up with numbers, but they're just increasing it for whatever reason.
That transcript does say 10 million. It's in 10, it was quoted in that meeting in July of 10 million. Mayor Truve mentioned
no, what happened was that they had said, what PKAD had said is they estimated the cost I have the transcript right here. They said they estimated it to be between 8 to 10 million. What they had to do was that with the suggestions that we had made about moving things from the basement to upstairs, that they would have to take a look at that and then see what the numbers come back at. So that's what they said.
Okay, we have a question here from this woman Terry. She wants to know.
Can somebody else ask a question?
Yeah, this is her question. She asked me to ask the question. It's not my question.
No, I said this lady hasn't asked the question before.
Yeah, and neither did this one, so I'm coming there next. Her question is, you have this proposal. When PKAD presents their proposal, this one would like to know who is going to make the ultimate decision at that point. Are the Board of Trustees just going to decide on their own, or is it going to be opened up to the community to have any input in the final decision?
Well, what I think makes sense is that when you sit there and when PKAD gives their presentation, I kind of look at this in like 3 different parts. The first thing about it is that, we talk about, and I know Councilman has said several times, about maintaining the building, the look, and everything else like that. But once we start adding the 2 buildings on either side, Now what ends up happening is you're adding a ton of square footage, okay? So the first thing that I would do is I'd sit there and I'd say, what is the square footage of both ideas, both projects, okay? The second thing that I would look at is I would say, if we're looking at both projects, what is the cost, okay? And one of the concerns that I do have is I do have a concern of the aspect of restoration. And the reason for it is because when you deal with restoration, you deal with an unknown. Earlier tonight, I happened to explain to you a point of restoration, the parking lot at Nassau Boulevard. And what happened was...
It's getting late. It's getting late.
But if you all, all right, I won't use Nassau Boulevard. If you also go online and if you Google some of the different firehouses that have been redone, what they originally projected and what the final cost is different. So my point to you is...
But that wasn't the question. The question is, who was going to make the final decision, the board or the community? That was the question. Not an explanation.
The people that would make the final decision on the firehouse would probably be the Board of Trustees.
Thank you.
Well, there is any hope that
But again, okay, and let me just say this one more time, okay? I've been a trustee for 8 years. And what happens is, in a lot of these issues, what happens is, it's been many times that the people in the West have expressed to both Steve and I what their particular feelings are. So the bottom line is that as your trustee from the West, what I will do is I will absolutely listen to what you people have to say. And what we're going to do is that we're going to sit there and compare apples to apples. We'll look at, like I said, square footage, look at cost, and then we'll also look at usage. So,
Okay,
my only point is that I think it's kind of difficult to say what you want until you see both of them and you see the facts on it.
But you're saying that the Board of Trustees is the only decision.
No, TJ asked me a question. He says, who will make the final decision? I said the Board of Trustees. But again, what I said to you personally, myself, I'm not going to make any decision on the firehouse until we sit and talk as a POA, and we sit there and we compare the different things, and then we talk about it, and I get to listen to what the residents of the West want. I agree with you 100%. And we can sit and talk about it. I agree with you as residents. I'm 100% in agreement.
It seems that many of the design features have been at the recommendations of the firemen and the fire chiefs.
Yes.
I was wondering if we could ask them again to rethink of what they absolutely need, and is there another way of looking at it, or are there areas of compromise, since so much of the design appears to hinge on what they've said?
Well, if you go back, and again, as I say, when you look at the different projects that have occurred, there have been a lot of projects in the village where things that were first presented and things that were actually done were two very, very different things. So the bottom line is a lot of places will turn around and say, I want to have this or I want to have this. The difference is, to some degree, is that when you look at the firehouse, you also have to look at, again, the needs that the fire department feels that they need to have. And you're 100% right. There's a difference between need and want. Okay?
I'm just saying, could they relook at it?
Right. So all I'm saying to you is that what we need to do is let me wait and see what they present to us. Let's wait and see what their numbers are, what their design is. And then what we do is we can start to take a look and say, what's the difference between need and want? But I think you're 100% correct.
Hi, John Van, new resident. So I don't have a lot of context on this because so maybe I'm not saying something, but if you say that you're in the very early stages of the engineering firm in terms of considering all the possibilities, are all the possibilities they are considering consist of demolishing this building, or is rehabilitation and stuff like Cosmo's plan included in the space of possible solutions they're considering?
Well, now what happens is you have two different paths that are being presented. PKAD's path of presentation is that they believe that it is in the best interest to demolish the building and to put a brand new building up. Cosmo's presentation is the aspect of preservation. So what I'm just saying to you is that what we need to do, to me, what I need to do is I need to see both of them. I need to understand what the differences are between the two. And then what happens is that's how you help to get a decision made.
So the demolition path would completely not have any historic value at that point. It might have the stylistic aspect of it, but it would be, for all intents and purposes, a completely new build.
It would be a new building which would basically look exactly the same as what you're seeing there right now. Yeah, same look, same brick, same rooftop, same everything. Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you saw back, I think it was back in February, is that when they first gave a presentation, they actually, and I actually asked them to redo this again, is that when they come back, for them to show the various pictures of the building, of before and after, before and after. And what happens is they actually put the slides, and they did this all around the building. So if you basically looked at what they presented and what was actually originally there, in some pictures, it'd be kind of difficult to tell which one was the before and after. But absolutely, I agree with you. I think that's one of the things which is important that the residents should.
Because this wasn't put out to RFP, it's a little suspect, right? It's like when somebody does a study, you got to see who it's paid by. So if you ask the fire department, listen, what do you want? You want a firehouse. That's what they're going to recommend, a new firehouse. Who's paying them? Yes or no? Right? When you look at a study, you want to see who's paying them.
What I don't appreciate is the things that you are constantly implying tonight. We've been going about this in a step-by-step way. This has been going on for years. Okay?
Right, just, not to cut you off at this point, just before it's getting late. Yeah. Does anybody have a question in regards to the actual plans that Cosmo or the presentation?
Nice job,
Hold on, hold on. I'm coming back.
We'll give you the file.
A simple comment. Am I being heard? A simple comment. If Cosmo's plan is ultimately selected, will he be paid for all the architectural work he's done?
I'll come back there. I just want to make one more comment on the committee's behalf. This design and plan is from the best recollection of what the committee could figure out, because the information we got was not very clear and there's no master plan, to the maximum wants of the fire department. Some of us don't feel that those wants are necessary, and this plan can always be scaled back. And what the beauty of this plan is, the main building is the main structure will remain. So it's possible that the ultimate plan could be one wing instead of two wings, or ultimately no wings. But again, that's for a later conversation of, you know, what is the risk, what is the needs, what is the necessities to expand the firehouse, or can it stay where it is?
And one of the things that I would ask Cosmo, if you wouldn't mind, is because I know that I received an original, I guess, blueprint or whatever that you had done. I think Maureen had sent it back to me back in August, I think it was August 13th or something. So if you could possibly send an email to me that has all of these pictures and the drawings and the schematics, and then what I can do is that I can then take that and I can share that with the rest of the board. PKAD is doing their work, and you did your work. So what, Cosmo, when they complete and when they give a presentation, you'll have a copy of it just like everyone else.
So Bob, we have a question in the back, basically to that point. When is the PKAD report expected?
This committee was formed.
Hold on.
We're being denied that process. We're being denied the process of helping the Board of Trustees come to a decision. I got involved because when I see erroneous information about the cost of construction and what can't be salvaged, and you keep saying 90 years old is a bad thing, that irritates me.
I never said it was a bad thing.
I'm an award-winning architect. We just won the Lucy Moses Award for preservation for a 35-story building in New York City. So I know a little bit about construction and preservation. Now, I'm not a preservation architect. I'm an architect. I deal with a lot of different projects. So what Mr. McCloud has said before is absolutely correct. Years ago, the Board of Trustees was looking to find out a way to save money from the school renovation program. So what did they do? They went out to the citizens in the community and said, we need architects, engineers, attorneys, real estate people to come together and analyze the problem for us. We did that. The committee was formed. They were going to spend $60 million in renovations. We got it down to go out to the residents and say, listen, we have a big problem here. And I see the same thing here. I lived in Western Session here for 45 years. I love this firehouse. Even though it's not on the National Register, it has beautiful lines, it's done in a tourist style, and it can be salvaged. So, based on my analysis, by the way, look at the PKD numbers. You're looking at numbers at $1,700 a square foot to $2,500 a square foot. It's unheard of. My union contractors charge in the vicinity of $300 to $500 a square foot. Union. So there's something wrong with this picture, Bob. And I really think, you want my drawings? I'll give you my drawings, but I want us to look at PKD is good.
Like I said, I respect your knowledge, I respect your degrees. What we did was that the village has made a decision to hire PKAD. So what ends up happening is that I'm gonna, we're so.
I think it might be illegal to go out, not have an RFP.
So what we're going to do is we're going to allow PKAD to complete their task, and when they complete their task, we can sit there and you'll see the diagrams just like we're going to see yours, and the bottom line is we can sit there and we can compare. But we have different, we have
dialogue. You could have saved time and money. We had a dialogue.
Listen, Cosmo, it is, I know you're sick of it, and the problem that we have, Cosmo, if you want to be blunt, the problem that we have, Cosmo, is that you have a tremendous amount of knowledge and skills, and I'm sorry to say this, but whenever we try to work on this, you are very combative. What ended up happening was we had a presentation in Village Hall.
Bob, that's not fair. I'm going to cut you off before you say something.
We're in a presentation at Village Hall, and you walked out. When we had the tour, you were so combative, I had to say to you on the second floor, can you please stop attacking Chief Gallup who's giving us the tour? So all I'm saying to you is that why don't we respect each other?
Not true.
Why don't we let
Not true.
PAD
You ignored it, that's not respectful.
Not true, Bob, and I think we should stop it there.
Yes, I too.
That is not true. Cosmo was there.
We can't hear you.
No, that is true.
Cosmo was there in the firehouse with the rest of the committee, by the way. And I can say that all Cosmo was doing was asking questions.
God forbid.
Microphone. Unfortunately, I think some of the people from the village who were there with us did not want us to be asking questions.
I agree.
And that's why it became combative, but it wasn't because Cosmo was asking anything out of the ordinary. He was just asking questions about the building. And I just wanted to say one other thing, if I might. We formed this committee, we formed this committee a little over a year ago. And at that time, Bob, we said that we wanted to be part of the discussion. And we said, can we please be a part with the board, understanding what PKAD was doing, what the chiefs were requesting, and I'm saying this goes back a little over a year ago. It wasn't until this March of 2020, that we're allowed to go through the building and see the inside the building. So we have been asking, this committee has been asking to be part of this for quite a while.
Maureen, I understand. Again, we hired PKAD, we want PKAD to finish their job. Once they're finished their job, and they present it as these architects and engineers see this, and then what we'll do is we can then make the comparison. It's not a problem.
Sure, but that's fine, but I think that some of the people get a little bit disturbed by the fact that we have to go all the way to that part of your ideas on this project, the board, I shouldn't say you particularly, I mean the board, with this. Why do we have to go? Let's see, PKAD made a presentation a little over a year and a half ago, January 19. We were not involved until March of 20, but I'm just saying that why do we have to go this whole way? I think that's what some of the people are frustrated about.
But we've had, Steve and I have met with you guys several times by Zoom. We've had several meetings and everything else. The difference is that what you're asking, and what Cosmo was asking, is that he wants to be able to sit down with PKAD and to basically present his ideas, his thoughts, his everything else. The bottom line is that, again, PKAD, you can Google them or whatever, is a very respected company and firm. They work on this stuff all the time. They have a tremendous skills and ability. We want them to present what they have, and then we're going to sit there and we're going to look exactly what Cosmo
No
has.
record of preservation. They never had any ideas. They never gave examples of preservation. All their examples were new construction.
We have a question.
I asked you if they did preservation, you said yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, what was the process that led to hiring PKAD to the tune of $500,000 now?
I don't remember the step by step. I can get them from Karen Wall, and I don't remember every single step that was along the way. It's been a while.
Tell me
But no more.
one step.
It's been a while.
Who made the decision to hire them?
The village did. The board did.
Who in the village?
How many bids did you have?
I don't even remember.
There were no bids.
Were there any bids?
The
The
information.
committee asked that question, and there was no response.
And there was no
Is it policy to get bids for
work.
work? Like you went to the school district, they get bids. They don't just go out and hire whoever they want.
Don't remember. And again, one of the things they do is
No,
they also...
answer my question. Is it
also...
Answer my question. Is it policy to get bids on every job?
No.
Okay.
All right, so do you have any type of answer whatsoever to my question of how this firm was hired?
Right now, I don't have the time frame and the information. I'll get it for you. No problem.
Thank you.
If you could, please do.
A question right here.
I just want to say that I'm very unhappy with the way this whole thing has gone. Put the horse before, the cart before the horse. Usually mess things up anyway. But the thing is, you arbitrarily just spend money as though it doesn't mean anything. Obviously, it's not coming out of your pocket, but it is coming out of our taxes, and we're very concerned over that. The other thing is, you go on and on and on about this report, and yet we don't have a date as when we are going to expect it, so that we can move forward. No date. Let's have a date as to when we're going to see this report, so that perhaps then we can start to pull things together.
I'll address the second one first. As far as with the date, I had mentioned to Maureen and to the committee that the estimated time when PKAD was going to be giving us their report was going to be sometime in, we figured, the end of September or in October. So that's the time frame that we were looking at. That answers that question. The other point that I'll say to you, I realize that you're looking at this and saying, you know, these trustees, they're basically sitting here and they're spending money in the village like drunken sailors, okay? And that can't be further from the truth. You have no idea the amount of things that we have done over the years that have reduced costs and expenses in the village. So for us, when we look at large projects or whatever, we're trying to make a decision on how we feel the best thing to go going forward. Now, you may not agree with it, but that's how we proceed.
Excuse me, I really don't want to hear. All I wanted was an answer to my question. You said we'll be coming within the next 2 weeks. Is that what I hear?
What happened was the time frame that PKAD gave us was end of... What I know was the
When are the
was the
meetings in
end
October?
of September, which is already gone. So I would expect it would be sometime in October. We have 2 meetings in October.
Will it be given to us, the Western property?
Public presentation will be made in the Board of Trustees, and then all the information will be available to all the residents, the POA, everyone.
Is the board under any obligation to look at Cosmo's plan? Will they?
Are we under an obligation? No. Will we? Will we? I know that both Steve and I definitely will.
Well,
We're
I
two of
think
the trustees.
personally that's one of my concerns, that it will be not given weight and not paid attention to and given any value because they weren't the hired firm.
Well, and again, if I look at previous projects, there have been many times that residents who have not been involved have given input in his affected projects. Just like one of the gentlemen mentioned here, different things. I've been volunteering in the village since '95. I've been on so many different committees over the years, and I remember that we gave input in many different ways. I'm a past president of the WPOA, and again, my thing of it is like I said, I will not vote on anything. I will not want to approve anything unless we sit here as the West and we have a discussion and we talk about the things that were presented. So I can't give you more of a commitment than that. And I think that if you want your representatives from the West, you don't want them making a decision without getting input from the residents. I think we would all agree with that. So that's what I'm committing to, and I always have.
No, I just, the statement, so many of the, it's just disturbing your response to the last question about whether you have an obligation to look at these plans. I think you have a huge ethical obligation that seems to be overlooked by the board. You're here.
I don't understand. I don't understand what you just said.
You're representing the village and making huge decisions, and you have an obligation to look at all the options.
I agree.
When you have people here offering up, spending time and offering plans, of course you have an obligation to consider them.
I agree
To
with
say
you.
otherwise is...
I didn't say otherwise.
You said I have no obligation to consider.
No. You asked, no. The question that was presented, did we legally have an obligation? I said no.
Nobody said legally.
Okay. What I'm just saying to you is that there's no way that I would do anything on, vote anything on this until I sat there and I looked at the comparison of what Cosmo did, and Steve has said the same thing. So you basically have 2 out of 8 trustees. You've got 1/4 of the board of trustees right here. And we both said we're not going to do anything until we take a look at what else was presented, and also until we talk with the residents of the West. That's what you want. You want your representatives who represent you on the board to listen to what the residents say, and that's what we'll do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank all of you for all your questions. Bob, thank you so much. We really appreciate you answering and hoping to get us the answers to their questions. If anybody would like to reach if you have questions that you haven't had a chance to express yourself this evening, you can reach us at an email address, wpoastation2@gmail.com. Send us your questions and we'll be sure to get them answered.
Will be drawing your website?
No, I don't believe so. So if you'd like, we'll just take a walk around and thank you so much. Motion to adjourn. Second.